What happened to the Savannah monitor? Did she die? Did I release her? Did I donate her to Petco? No, she's been right here the entire time. Firstly, why is she in a swaddle? She just likes being swaddled. Is essentially the best way that I found that I can record her while handling her, or just handle her in general, is put her in a swaddle like she's a little baby. If you didn't know, this is a Savannah monitor that I got off Craigslist last October or so, somewhere around there. So I've had her for a good little while. I am her third home. Firstly, she was with someone living in like a 15 or 20 gallon with basically nothing in it. So somebody else rescued it from her and kept it in their garage in a poorly made wooden enclosure and was being fed, I think, just raw meat, and that was it. And then I got her for 20 bucks on Craigslist. I went with Craigslist to get her because you really usually don't want to buy these in stores, mostly because the majority of them will be directly imported from where they are native from. So wild-caught animals, especially when they're imported in such mass numbers, are nice to avoid. So I guess it was a bit of a rescue, but there were quite a few problems that came along with doing so. So the question for this video is, do I regret getting a Savannah monitor? And how has it been the past number of months caring for one? So this Savannah monitor is probably the most advanced species that I'm keeping in the room. Even the boa, which is like 100 times the size of her, is way easier in pretty much every way. Even handling is sometimes easier. This brought up my very first concern, which is what you could call a little bit of regret with getting her. Not because I didn't think I was capable of doing it, but because people, especially younger people, tend to be often influenced by what I say in videos. That's expected. I think that's a lot of channels, and I mean, that's very flattering for that to be the case. But as soon as people see an animal in my room, they think, this is probably a great animal for me. So as soon as I showed the monitor on the channel, as I kind of expected in the back of my mind, I got multiple messages by people that were probably under like 10 years old. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with being under 10 years old. I definitely think you're capable of caring for an animal. But these were people that were like, hey, I don't have any reptiles, but I'll sell a Savannah monitor. It looks really fun. I'm gonna go get one. Please don't. That's basically what I told them when I responded to them, a little bit more nicely and more detailed as to why. But it is not as simple as a beginner lizard. Now, what is a beginner lizard? That's a whole nother story, but I won't go off on that tangent. But let's just say crested geckos or leopard geckos. Although it looks not too far off when it's young, the husbandry is completely different. It gets much larger as an adult, and it's a much more controversial animal to care for. The husbandry information for these are different on every single website you look at. This means that there's really no right way or wrong way to do things. Well, there are wrong ways to do it, like don't use broken glass as substrate or something, but it's very hard to get there's no unanimous decisions on basically any of their care. This means that it's harder to research and harder to get concrete answers for. Savannah monitors are almost never known to actually live their full natural lifespan in captivity because perfecting its care has been so difficult. Unlike, look at something like a ball python, which you can find tons of resources on, most of which will be quite similar, but it's much different with these because they have not been kept as long. Now I think maybe they've been kept as long, but not kept as much, and kept very differently between people. So that means that when you have a question, you won't necessarily get an answer. Now, this is certainly not a care guide. I'm certainly not making a care guide for quite a while, but some different examples of just how controversial it can be is the temperature of the animal. Some sites or some people or resources or whoever say that the hotspot should be about 100 degrees. Others say more like 150 degrees. Some say 115, 130. There's so much variation in there. And then what should the ambient be? What should the cooler side be? Do they need a cooler side? All the fun stuff like that. And because they get so big, they need basically massive enclosures. And the enclosure is another reason that it's concerning that that random people wanted to go pick them up after seeing this monitor in my first video. So Savannah monitors were an animal that I researched for probably a couple years before getting it, but when I got it, it was still quite concerning, especially because she had never been handled. I don't know if the very first owner handled her, but the second owner, when I went to pick her up, they were like, yeah, I haven't handled it in a couple months. I think she's probably stuck behind the thing somewhere. I just stick the food in and it usually disappears. I didn't even see the animal before taking the massive enclosure because she was like just hiding behind the thing, never messed with. And they are a species that are smarter than the average reptile, like smarter than maybe a blue-tongued skink or a leopard gecko, maybe, but not as smart as something like a tegu or other monitor species. In the monitor's case, this means that they are pretty good at remembering things and maybe even learning very simple commands or motions, depending on who you ask, but it's hard to change their mind about things, at least that's the way that I understand it or have interpreted it. So once they learn that something's dangerous or unsafe, the older they get, the faster and harder it is to get them used to it. In this case, it was people and handling and kind of everything. And the biggest thing I was told by people is do not directly go up and scoop her up like you would with maybe, I'll just go back to leopard geckos. The best way to tame a leopard gecko down and get it used to handling is to handle it frequently. Even if it doesn't enjoy it, you do it carefully, and you just like take little bits of time to pick it up even if it doesn't enjoy it, and slowly let it realize that it's completely fine. Monitors, however, according to a lot of people, are not at all like this, and this will not convert them over, it'll simply make them hate you more. So what I was trying to do is like a half an hour a day, just hang around and see if she's interested in coming to you. The answer in my case was she was definitely not. So looking at her 6 months after getting her, activity-wise and like how she was tameness-wise, was not very different from when I first got her. Health-wise, I believe this is very different, and I'll get to that soon, but there was really not very much improvement. Something else that I often tried was bathing her in the bathtub usually, or just a big tub of nice warm water. This relaxes them, calms them down, asterisks, according to some people. Meanwhile, other people were yelling at me every time I posted a picture of her when she was in water. So like, this is the very last thing you want to do. This is going to make her worse. She's out of her natural area. She's going to hate it. More controversy. So, should I bathe her? Should I not? I kind of kept bathing her, just not posting pictures of it so that people would stop irritating me. Now, I'm very open to the criticism at all times, especially if it's very nice criticism, and I will have conversations with you as often as I possibly can about improving my own husbandry. But with the Savannah monitor, I just had to kind of start blocking it out to a certain extent, and I would more so reach out to people that have worked with them before instead of just being open to all and any information, because it was just overwhelming and not at all efficient. So that's kind of why you saw a bit of just like a disappearance of her on the channel and Instagram page. She did not disappear. I just had to do everything on the down low more because I had to learn myself, digest the information that I've been given, reach out to people when I need to in Facebook groups and stuff, and just see how it goes. Also, her enclosure was made in like what looks like 10 minutes by those other people, but because I knew I was going to move again, I didn't want to build some massive 8-foot enclosure that I wouldn't be able to move out of the room when I was getting ready to move in another few months. So I temporarily moved her to a 40-gallon when I moved her to the home, and she's still in that. But overall, it's not ideal. One of the big things is the glass at first was very distressing for her because she can see all around, and I mean, she panics more when I'm walking around the room, but that has made a huge difference in her views towards me, you could say. So because I'm in this room often, and it's right out of shot, the enclosure, but because that enclosure's kind of like right in the middle of the room, I did that on purpose, because she saw me walking around so much, so over time she was like, okay, that thing is not doing anything to me. I can actually bask and relax here while he's still in the room, or it is still in the room. And that only took a few weeks, and now she's perfectly fine. She will bask, and she has for months while I'm still in the room. And then soaking wise, what I did is instead of like bringing her all the way to the bathtub and putting her there, I would just warm up the water in her own enclosure, put her in that water, and then she can actually choose if she wants to soak or if she wants to leave. While she's soaking, it is much easier to pet her and massage her and just even start to handle her and let her walk around on me and stuff. So that was, I felt, a nice in-between when it comes to bathing and not at all bathing or soaking. You can also see there's a little bit of stuck shed right on the top of her head, which is like the most annoying place. I don't know why it's always the top of her head that she has trouble. I'll try and continue to add stuff in the enclosure. The humidity has been fine, but it has not been perfect, so I'll keep working on that. But that also means that I have to give her little soaks to help her get that off each time. The diet. I started her off, I think, on roaches. It might have just been roaches, just dusted with the same multivitamin and calcium mix that I usually use. And she was enjoying it, and that was working. I did not feed her raw meat. But I was following what you could consider the normal diet for a Savannah monitor. This monitor, however, was very underweight and extremely dehydrated when I first got her. So thankfully when I got her, I immediately made sure the humidity and the water bowl was clean and everything, and her dehydration very quickly went away, which I was very glad to see. However, her weight was really just staying the same, which it was just on the thin side. So then I just made the realization that I should have made sooner. Of course she's not gaining weight because I am following the ideal Savannah monitor diet that helps you maintain a weight in your Savannah monitor. I need to fatten this up and actually get enough fat and calories into her so she can increase. And then once she's at the ideal weight, I can put her back to a normal diet. So with the help of some different suggestions and more research, I added a few more rodents into her diet. I would just use, at the start, like very small frozen mice. Then it turns out she loves scrambled eggs. So when I would make scrambled eggs for myself, I would occasionally make her some too. Unfortunately, she doesn't get the butter or the spices or the salt, she just gets plain egg. But she still loved it either way, and that is extremely fattening, and that really gave a nice boost. Then I stopped doing that after a few weeks or so after occasionally giving that, and now we're here at a weight that I feel is probably ideal, which means that she's just back onto insects, which are dubias and different worms that I have around, or she also loves hornworms, pretty much anything. I buy like 5 insect species at a time, so she just gets everything. And from the start, it was extremely hard to feed her, because she was terrified of me. I was using tongs, but even then I would have to like just reach around to the back of the enclosure and I'd feel her grab it and then give her another. So thankfully over time she got much more used to actually taking from the tongs, so now she can eat while I'm right there and she looks relaxed. That's a nice improvement to see. Food is definitely a great way to train any animal, whether it's a cold-blooded lizard or like your puppy or something. So from October to now, we've seen a huge difference in health in my opinion, and we've seen a pretty big difference in handleability, so that hopefully once she is an adult and 3.5 feet long or 3 feet or 4 feet, however big she gets, because I think she's female, it won't be as big, then I won't be dealing with some like massive chompers that are just trying to kill me. Thankfully, she has not bitten me very often. She definitely did a lot more at first, and it's much less frequent now, so that's an obviously good improvement. Now, just a side note about biting is she'll grab such a tiny amount of skin on your hand, she'll just like nip it, but her jaws are so strong that she will just latch on and not let go. And then every time she gets aggravated, she twists, like if you've seen alligators or crocodiles do the death roll, she'll kind of do that, but just with her head, and it just rips your skin, and it sucks. It doesn't even like bleed that much or anything, it's just tearing all these layers of skin, so I'll have like peeling hands and look like I'm shedding myself. Why am I going into this? But anyway, having that with a full-size monitor would not be as fun, so it's good to get that stuff over with while she's still small. So yeah, for like the first 6 months or so, it was like, oh no, what did I get myself into? I mean, this is a really cool animal, really fun to feed, and fun to have what I know will become a large animal, but is she ever going to improve? And luckily she finally started making those improvements. So this very time-consuming, very angry, very hungry animal has been one of my projects, you could say, for about the past year now, and it's been very fun. The next step in this is to make her final enclosure that she'll actually will be full size and have everything she needs, so hopefully that'll be on the way soon. When I name my animals, I often go off of colors or patterns, and her belly is quite pink. It's a little bit orange, but mostly pink. So what's something that's pink? Bubblegum. What's related to bubblegum? Princess Bubblegum. What's Princess Bubblegum's name? Bonnabelle. So this is Bonnabelle. So in the end, do I regret getting a Savannah monitor? No, not at all. Should you get a Savannah monitor? Well, that's really not up to me. However, the thing that I would suggest based on my experience is if you can, try and find someone that already has a monitor, or a place like a facility or a rescue or a zoo that has a monitor that you can actually get hands-on with. That's probably very hard to do. I don't know where I could possibly do that around me. But if you could actually work with someone experienced in person, that would be much nicer than just trying to Google stuff. Again, if you go into a pet store, I think there's like a handful of people that are trying to breed them or successfully breeding them, but there are not very many for sale like that. So when I would suggest to get one off Craigslist or something, but the problem is you have no idea what their health or their attitude or their previous owner will be like. So that'll be up to you to help me research and see where the best place to get a monitor is. Ideally, it'll be a rescue, but find a better place to rescue it from than maybe some sketchy site. Bonnabelle, I appreciate your patience in this video. I will unswaddle you soon after we do this outro. If you have not seen the merchandise, we have not all sorts of stuff. There's like 2 things on the site right now, but you can get a Franklin pin or a Go Herping poster, or both, in a nice little bundle. Posters ship to anywhere in the US. Franklin pins ship anywhere in the world. Free shipping for both. You can go to goherping.com/shop to check those out. Let's get a coupon code for the next week. Let's go 20% off anything on the store with code Bonnabelle. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know if you want to see more Bonnabelle and whatever else you want to see in the room. I haven't shot in this room in a while, so it's kind of nice. I had to unplug all the filters so it wouldn't be all noisy, but it's probably more interesting to look at this than a blank wall with some plushies. So let me know your thoughts on that. That's it for this video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.